Hello, everyone, and welcome to the My Greek Island podcast, Bitesize Greek series edition with your teachers George Tsounyas
and Maria Petrakou. Γεια σου Γιώργο.
Γεια σου, Maria.
So what are we learning today, Γιώργο?
If you remember last week or last episode, we talked about taking the ferry when in Greece. But today we're building on that and turning our attention to the underground, or as they call it in Greek, the metro. Chances are you will be taking the metro in Athens unless you've hired a car or take the taxi or the bus. But I usually take the metro. But did you know, Maria, that this is not just a metro in Athens? There is actually a metro in another city in Greece.
I did, although I had to check it because I wasn't too convinced that it's actually ready. So the second city that has a metro under construction, nearly ready, not too sure, is Thessaloniki, which is the second biggest city in Greece. And the rumor has it that it will be opening in November. Let's see.
Yeah, I actually think the metro in Thessaloniki is a running joke in Greece for the extent of its delays to its construction. Because actually, fun fact, when I did the research, because I know it is a running joke, but I didn't know like why and all that stuff. But there was something like 300,000 artifacts that were found during construction dating back to the, what was it, 4th century BC. So it must have been a nightmare when they were just like digging to do an underground station. And then they're like, oh, we found another ancient city. So not great for people that want to use the metro, but I think pretty good for historians and excavation enthusiasts, which I'm sure there are many.
Absolutely. But should we get into the episode?
Bam, Maria.
Okay, so without further ado, let's get in to today's episode. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the My Greek Island podcast, dedicated to take you, the wanderlust, on a journey through Greece.
There are 227 inhabited Greek islands. Which one will you visit next?
My Greek Island, with your hosts George and Maria.
Learning a new language can be very daunting, take lots of courage, and also a lot of time. One thing that is very true, it can be very demotivating when you don't seem to make any progress. This series is all about providing you with the instant language to use, get a reaction, and hopefully learn a thing or two that will stick. And who knows, you might even be inspired to start learning Greek properly.
And when you go on holiday, you just need, a few words, phrases, maybe a bit of slang, and you're ready to go, right, Yorgo?
Indeed. Now, upon arriving in Athens, if you're arriving to an island, you might want to skip this episode or consider going via Athens so you can listen to this episode. Chances are you will be taking the metro to the centre unless you have another means of transport. It's probably the quickest way to the centre, really.
It is. Yeah, it is. I mean, because it's probably the only way that you won't experience any traffic. I think it's approximately 40 minutes from the airport to Syntagma. And if you time it right and you're not waiting, because I think the frequency of them is every 30 minutes, it could be a great way to get from the airport to the city centre, and guaranteed 40 minutes you're going to be there.
Yep, exactly. And also, really good tip that you mentioned there, and something I have fallen victim of many occasions. I'm very, very organized. I like to get to the airport very, very early. And I used to think that the frequency from the center to the airport was the same as like all the metros, that they would always go to the Athens airport. But actually, they're not as frequent as like all the other trains. So it's not like every train goes and has its terminus in the airport. So do check that out, because I think they're only like, as you said, every half an hour. I just presumed that they all just go to the airport. So yeah. The word for underground, if you have not guessed it from the title and what we said, is metro. So to metro. And you could put this straight into a sentence to ask, where is the underground? Which would be, πού είναι το μετρό? Πού είναι το μετρό?
And you might remember, we've already covered it in previous episodes, how to say I would like, which is θα ήθελα. And now we're looking for tickets. So one ticket, εισιτήριο, or multiple tickets, εισιτήρια. So that's εισιτήριο, εισιτήρια. Now, most probably, you will actually purchase these from the machine. But let's just assume that you're going to buy them from the cashier. And you will be purchasing the most frequently used ticket, which is what is referred to as the 90-minute journey ticket, or you can just refer to it as a simple ticket, which in Greek is απλό. So if you want one simple ticket, you will say ένα απλό εισιτήριο. Ένα απλό εισιτήριο. Now, just to caveat here and note that the specific simple ticket, the 90-minute journey, is not applicable for the airport. So please keep that in mind. In the case of the airport, you do need to purchase a special ticket, and we'll tell you how to ask for it as well. So if you want to ask for one ticket to the airport, you can say ένα εισιτήριο για το αεροδρόμιο παρακαλώ. Ένα εισιτήριο για το αεροδρόμιο παρακαλώ. And that ticket is what you would use to go or to come from the airport.
Or you could ask for a daily ticket, which would be ένα ημερήσιο εισιτήριο παρακαλώ. Ένα ημερήσιο εισιτήριο παρακαλώ. Or for a plural using two, δύο ημερήσια εισιτήρια παρακαλώ. And also, I know we said we could be using the machines, but I hope you're not actually listening to this Bitesize Greek learning and not looking to use the language that we're giving you. So my challenge to you would be to queue up in the heat, I don't care, to go to that counter and use the language we're teaching you, because we're spending a lot of time planning this for you. Do you think that's good, Maria? Give them all a challenge.
Okay.
And then report back to us.
Yeah, okay. Or send George some ideas for some other bite-sized episodes so he's not planning episodes that you won't require. Although this is transferable, you can definitely use this for any other type of transport as well. You might need to use the bus, etc. So definitely transferable. Anyhow, most things, however, in the center, and if you're staying in the center, can actually be accessed on foot. So you might not need these tickets or the daily ticket. However, there's a possibility that you might be staying in a different part of Athens that's more residential and not close to the city center to be on foot. So in those cases, you will probably be using the metro. So it might be good to know if you can get there by the underground by saying, for example, I'd like to go to X. Can I go there by the underground? So let's say, for example, you want to go to George's favorite place in Athens, Philopappou Hill, and you want to ask that you want to go there and can I go with the underground? So you would say, θέλω να πάω Φιλοπάπου. Μπορώ να πάω με το μετρό? Θέλω να πάω Φιλοπάπου. Μπορώ να πάω με το μετρό?
Look at all that extended language we're providing you there. That is one full sentence that you can perfect and sound awesome to. And regardless of the answer, the answer is probably going to be yes or no, which is ne or όχι. And yes, you need to visit Philopappou Hill in Athens because we always talk about it. Any person that goes to Athens, we tell them to go to see the sunset there or to recommend visiting. And also someone commented, Maria, about gestures in Greek or something like that, or words that are not words but have meaning. So like sometimes in Greek you hear stuff like or they'll do like a nod. Maybe it could be a good episode to do something like that on. But back to Filobabble, the answer actually is you can get there by metro, and walking, you have to get off at the Acropolis station. I think that's probably the closest one. And one final thing, a bit off topic, is if you are getting a ticket and the tickets you can use in the center, it's like a 24-hour ticket, you can actually use them for most of the means of transport apart from the airport bus and the airport train. And for the buses, you can't actually buy a ticket on the bus. You have to get them from like a kiosk or somewhere where it's usually you go to the underground station to get them.
Yeah, I'm not sure you can actually buy them from the kiosk anymore. We'd need to. You used to be able to in the past.
Yeah, no, I don't think I tried to do that, which is really annoying. Like if you're
Yeah.
nowhere near a place you can buy them.
No, so you used to be able to get them at a kiosk in the past. I don't think you can do that anymore. But I've noticed recently that in other European cities as well, it's the same. That you can, like for example, in Italy, in Milan, you can only get them in the underground station as well. So I guess what we're trying to say here, yeah, is plan ahead.
Forward
And if you
planning.
plan to use them, then maybe the 24-hour ticket, if it makes sense, depending on where you're staying, or the tourist 3 day or 5 day ticket might be worth your while, just to make sure that you're not stranded anywhere and you don't have a ticket to get on a bus, because the fines are actually quite high. But I mean, going back to Philobapu, I just want to add that if you do head to Georgia's favorite spot and if you want to experience it maybe like a local, then how about grab a coffee on your way there and um, maybe listen to our coffee edition as well of this episode to find out how to order your coffee, exactly how you drink it. But remember, if you're taking a cup that's not a one use, although we're hoping that you will have your own cup with you and your straw, make sure to leave only your footprints. Take that with you and find a recyclable bin or something to bin it.
Now, as our bite-sized learning crew is becoming accustomed to, we like to role play certain things at the end of each episode, and you can listen back to a whole conversation. But we ain't doing it this time. We're chopping it up and just giving you some key words that you have learned in this episode. So the first one was, where is the metro? Πού είναι το μετρό?
Then we had one simple ticket, ένα απλό εισιτήριο.
We then had a ticket for the airport, so ένα εισιτήριο για το αεροδρόμιο.
Then we had a daily ticket, ένα ημερήσιο εισιτήριο.
Then we had my favorite place to visit, and θέλω να πάω Φιλοπάπου. Μπορώ να πάω με το μετρό? So I'd like to go to Φιλοπάπου. Can I go there with the underground?
And then the simple answers of yes or no, ναι, όχι.
And finally, you'll need to listen back to the coffee learning episode to know what I'm asking for. So I'm plugging it again. Ένα φρέντο καπουτσίνο, παρακαλώ. Γλυκό.
Right, my Greek Islanders, I think this comes to the end of this bite-sized learning Greek episode. But before we go, what's on the next lesson, Yorgo?
Stay tuned, as Bite-Sized Greek episode 8 will be the final one on transport, I think, where we'll be taking the taxi or το taxi. So stay tuned for that one coming up very shortly. But until the next episode, make sure you follow us on Instagram at My Greek Island, and also send us your bite-sized Greek learning requests, because we do read them and we do act upon them. Γεια σας. Right, my Greek Islanders, this comes to the end of another episode of this podcast.
Now you know the drill. If you like this episode, share it to share the love with the My Greek Island community, where everyone is welcome. And
don't forget to follow, like, subscribe, and all that jazz. And maybe give us a little rating from wherever you're listening to us from, so you are notified every time a new episode drops. And if you have any suggestions or requests, get in touch.
And for those of you visiting Greece, don't forget to tag @MyGreekIsland on Instagram for a future feature. Until then, see you later, or as they say in Greek,
Ta
ta leme.
leme.